Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big episode 10 of the Kona 2 podcast. I'm very excited to get this episode underway. 10 is a big number. A lot of podcasts that fans make don't get this far. So I'm proud of everyone who's been a part of this. Of course, I am your host. I'm Connor, driver of the 16 car in most leagues that I run in, and owner of Kona 2 Racing. I'm joined by Nico Servideo. How are you doing today, Nico?
I'm good. You let me out of the basement for a second straight week.
Yeah, I think we're going to let you out of the basement a little more often.
Yeah.
Nico is, of course, filling in for Dakota, and I think we're going to see if we can get Nico on the show full time going forward. But we are missing Braden tonight. He might show up later in the show, but he's radio silent, MIA. But we have a very, very exciting guest tonight. This is someone I've been wanting to get on the show for a while, and I know he's wanted to get on the show for a while. Mr. Tristan Grace has joined us today.
What's going on, y'all?
So,
Good
Tristan
to be here.
is the owner of the Kansas McBasketball Enterprises team. Um, he's been a pretty good friend of the Kona 2 brand for a little while. Um, but I'm gonna let him talk. Tristan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I've spent a pretty productive day at work. Painted some boundary lines, and then after I get off, I changed the oil in my truck, and then I just a little while ago, I ate a pizza or cooked a pizza and ate it. DiGiorno stuffed crust,
Oh yeah.
very tasty. And right now, I'm just kicking back with a glass of milk, and I'm here to talk on the Kona 2 cast. And yes, I've definitely been waiting to be on this one for a while. I've been wanting to be on a podcast for a while, and it's nice to finally have that chance.
Yep.
And I've I've been a longtime partner of Kona 2 Racing,
Mhm.
probably since their second season ever in online NR2003 Racing. That was Cars Truck Series Season 3, I believe, is when we first got together.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how we ended up partnering.
Yeah.
I My memory doesn't reach that back
I
that far. Maybe you remember.
I don't remember all the details, but I was definitely surprised when you approached me because up to that point you and I did not really get along in cars. Um I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware of who both of us are. And obviously Nico too. We were Cars Truck Series regulars. And a lot of the drivers from that series have moved on to a lot of the leagues that a lot of our listeners come from. Um, and you might remember the rivalry, if you want to say that, um, that you and I had, because we did not get along. It was kind of one-sided on track. Um, I just could not stop wrecking you. It seemed like.
Yes, the rivalry was just you finding a new way to wreck me every single week.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I was still really, really new to the NR 2003 scene at that time. I was racing for Kez's team, High Spire Motorsports at the time, or maybe it was High Spire Racing. High Spire, regardless. Um, and that number 28 Interstate Batteries truck always seemed to find the back bumper of the Tristan Grace machine. And I always felt horrible because I was not trying to wreck you on purpose, but it seemed like every other week I was wrecking you. And then eventually you approached me and said that you wanted to team up, and I was pretty shocked, but I accepted it. And you've been a good friend and partner of the team for a while. And obviously, you have Kansas McBasketball Enterprises, which is doing pretty well. So how's that running your own team? I don't know if you go as in depth as I do with Kona 2 Racing. I get pretty involved, but what's it like, having your own drivers and your own cars and what's kind of the balance like as a driver owner in the NR 2003 leagues?
Well, there's really only one way to start that, and that's just to go back to the beginning. It was coming to the end of season one of the Cars Truck Series, back when it was called the Advanced Auto Parts Truck Series,
Mm-hmm.
where basically the team that I was running for, TK Motorsports, they ended up folding. And so I ran like the last one or two races on that schedule in my own truck, and that's where McBasketball Enterprises really started, was in the number 10 Johnny Benson inspired Chevy Silverado.
Mm-hmm.
It had like the cool Valvoline scheme that he had
Yeah.
on the side. It was a very slick truck. Um, ended up ended up almost winning at the last race of that season before Zach Hillier put me into the wall on the final turn of the final lap
Yep.
and took that one away from me. But
He's
when
Go ahead.
when season two started, I just kept going with my own team until William Kelly, the owner of TK Motorsports, he
Mm-hmm.
came back and paired up with Sean Derryman, and they created DKM, which was Derryman Kelly Motorsports.
Yeah.
And I moved back to running for them, and that's where me and Jacob Hammond ended up being on the same team for a little bit.
Yep.
But of course, Hammond is Hammond, and ended up leaving the team shortly after. And we ran really well. I was leading the points that season in the Cars Truck Series until things happened, and I I ended up getting suspended for the rest of that season.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why I was always so upset and felt so guilty about wrecking you, because I was still new to NR 2003, like I said, and especially cars. It was the first big league that I was running in, and I knew that you were typically a front runner, and it was just one of those things where no matter what I did, I felt like I couldn't stay out of your way, and because I hated to be essentially a roadblock for the fast guys in that league, and it just that's how things happened. I'm really not like that anymore, thank God, but you know, it just takes practice to get good at sim racing.
Yes, it does. And to go back to your original question, the whole balancing being a team owner and everything, I ended up getting very like in depth with the team, like
Mhm.
almost to your level, where in season three of Cars Truck Series, where McBasketball Enterprises really took off when we had the 61 truck and then the 53 truck of Alexander Brown.
Yep.
And then Aiden Smith and Bryson Miller both ran a couple races
Mhm.
for me. And then, um, let's see here. Then, midway through the season, I kind of got kicked out of cars. Um, yeah, that that happened.
That happens.
That happened.
Can't talk about it. It's under
And
an NDA.
Yep.
and ended up moving the team over to kart, and I still retained Alexander Brown, and he
Yeah,
has
he
been
ran
one of the
really
most
well.
successful drivers in McBasketball Enterprises history.
Yeah.
Let's see here, on the one season that was running Cup 2000, and me and Alexander Brown both won a race that
Yep.
season. That was a really good season for us. And then when the Pinty's series mod came along, he found some victory as well. I wasn't as good that season because I had taken more of a part-time
Yeah.
approach to running, and we also had there was the dynamic between Kona 2 and McBasketball,
That's
where
yep, that's
we
where it all
kind of
started.
swapped Robbie Gilvin back and forth
Yep.
a few races, and that was really fun.
It
That was
was.
a
And obviously Robbie races for us full time now, but he wouldn't have if it wasn't for that partnership. So I
I mean, yeah,
I definitely
has
remember Alexander Brown being a big threat in kart. He just recently rejoined um, Essex and is now racing for Rust Bucket Racing, I believe, with Chase Severs' team. And
Hmm.
already we're seeing good stuff out of him. He wasn't able to race Phoenix, but he was top 10 pretty much all night at Michigan. I don't remember exactly where he finished, but I know he ran really, really well. So I think you definitely played a big part in getting his name, getting his name out there. And I think Miss McBasketball Enterprises is definitely one of the cooler teams, especially now that you've got your podcast. And I just, I always really like the teams in this community that go all in. Like Kona 2 Racing, obviously. Then you have Soda City Racing, Kez's team. Um, and then McBasketball Enterprises are some of the teams that I think are really cool because they kind of build a brand around their team, and I think that's cool. So,
yes, that's spot on the branding part of it. Like I I used to be big into making sure that everybody knew who this team was.
hmm
I mean, I created I created the Moneyball Oil Corporation,
yep,
and so me and Alexander Brown drove those identical white and green trucks. It was a
yes, it
super
was.
cool time to be a McBasketball driver.
I um I haven't used it in a long time, but I remember my last full time season of Cars Trucks. I ran that as a secondary sponsor on a lot of my paint schemes because it was just so funny. Maybe I can
Yes, dude. Like I,
maybe I can bring that back as a quarter panel sponsor at some point. But so obviously you run Essex. What other leagues are you racing in, and how are you doing in the points, and how are you running? Have you gotten any wins recently?
sadly, I've not. It's been a while since I've gotten an online win. Let's see here. Last online win would have to be Mondays of Thunder Truck Series at Michigan
Uh huh.
this past season, earlier this year, where it it was kind of a Mickey win, but if the bullshit didn't happen at the end of the race that caused the Mickey win didn't happen, then I would have still won
Yep.
because we were three wide coming to the line at Michigan, and basically it like the guy on my inside ended up spinning me,
Yep.
and some bullshit also happened up there at the front as well. I ended up coming across the line second, but the guy that spun me from first, he ended up getting penalized post race for spinning me, and I ended up having that win put on my record.
That sounds pretty identical to my first win. I don't. You might have been racing in it, and Nico, you might have been too. My first win was in the Cars Truck Series at Talladega. I think it was season 3, my first season. I wasn't keeping track of season numbers back then, but I think it was season 3. I got wrecked with about 15 to go, and then there was a restart with about 10 to go, and I came from like 25th, raced my way all the way up through the field in 10 laps to second. I had Cameron Jamison pushing me at the end, and I remember specifically him saying over voice chat, "Hold it steady, I'll push you." And the 95 truck finished first. I finished right behind him, but then he got penalized post race, and I ended up getting the win. So that I know exactly how a Mickey win feels, but those are always some of the funnier wins.
I
You know
don't remember any
what's
tight races. I get wrecked out in most of them anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, but what's funny about that? You saying you got your first win in the Cars Truck Series at Talladega? That was my first win in cars. Was
Oh.
season one of the Truck Series at Talladega. It was the first Cars race that was ever broadcasted, I believe.
Uh-huh.
I want to say that, but I can't be exactly sure. And that's actually where the Crangis McBasketball name took off
Mhm.
because I had taken a hiatus from racing because it was winter break and I had to go back home and the internet is terrible at home.
Yep. I know the
So
feeling. I know the feeling.
I I came back once winter break was up, and my first race was at Talladega for TK Motorsports, and I changed my name to Crangis McBasketball, and I had the most meme truck ever. You know the I Heart Mac and Cheese truck that Bobby Reyes raced for Jordan Anderson racing at Daytona Road Course in 2021,
I think so, yeah.
where it's got like the liquid cheese and stuff. It was
Mhm.
like liquid gold coming down the side of the truck. So I changed that to white.
Okay.
I
Yep.
think you know where this is going.
I do.
I think you know where this is going.
Yeah.
So I drove a truck to victory lane.
Well, there you go.
That's a bleep.
Yeah. But that's funny. If I remember correctly from your podcast, you mentioned that you run Maverick most weeks. So Maverick
Poor soul.
obviously has a reputation. How's your Maverick season going?
Well, actually, I got my first top 10 in Maverick ever yesterday at Pocono.
Nice, nice.
Did a little pit strategy and
Uh-huh.
was able to hang on.
I try to keep up with Maverick, but I haven't watched the last few races, but it has a reputation and I cannot imagine what it's like racing in Maverick.
I'll tell you, Bristol's next week. I'm scared. I'm scared, Connard.
I'm sure Bristol in most leagues doesn't go well, so Bristol and Maverick is that's got to be scary.
We're
Be
running the
prepared.
whole race under caution.
Be prepared for their
A whole
caution
race.
cooldowns. It's their caution cooldowns the dumbest thing ever. It's I don't know if they revised it since I fucking left because I was tired of their bullshit. But they do it for 10 laps. But if there's a field blocking wreck, they don't throw a caution.
Yeah,
Like Richmond, when I did it, it was chaos.
I was
It was
watching
absolute
Richmond
chaos.
and the broadcasters had no idea what was going on and they never saw my comment, or if they did, they didn't say anything. But told them in the live stream chat the reason why this isn't working is because most leagues that have a caution cooldown
Have competent drivers.
have competent drivers, but if there is a field ending wreck or there's a wreck in front of the leaders, they typically still throw the caution. And Maverick was not throwing the caution when the entire field was wrecking at Richmond.
Like, no, we gotta drive around this and pray not to get wrecked.
Yeah, it was really bad. So I don't know if they've revised it at all. Tristan, you'd have to answer that one, but I know that was really bad. I think we talked about it on this podcast. Dakota, Braden, and I did.
Look, I don't know much about the rules as far as caution cooldowns go. I just show up and race.
Yep.
Which, funny enough, I actually run for Alexander Brown's team in there now.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a bit of a role reversal
Yeah, cool how
on that
it
front,
goes
which
full
is cool.
circle. So, I guess how do I want to word this question? As a team owner for me, it's who runs I don't want to say mid-pack, but I don't compete for wins very often. If you have teammates or people driving for your team and you see them succeeding really well, what's that kind of like as a team owner? Because for me, obviously Dakota ran really well last season in Essex and ended up winning the championship. Robbie Gilvin won 5 races or whatever it was. I'm proud of them, but it's hard as a driver to see your cars doing so well. So I'm curious to see your take on that as a team owner.
Um, really, you just have to separate yourself as a driver and a team owner. Like on the driver front, yes, you want to be, up there and competitive as well, but at the same time, as a team owner, you're like, whatever's getting, the team name out there and showing them that we belong, that's good. And I have no issue with that.
Yeah,
Like I'll
go ahead.
as a team owner, I'll run in the back all day long, if another car is winning, but as a driver, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I just this is the first time besides Kez that we've had like a team owner that is pretty involved with the actual team on the show. So I was curious to see kind of how you feel about, being a team owner of a successful team when maybe sometimes you aren't running so well. So that's a good answer because I really loved getting the Kona 2 brand out there with how well we were running in Essex, and we still are running well. So that was a good answer. I liked that. Nico, do you have any questions for Tristan?
Um, I didn't really think of any of coming up in here. I guess what leagues that you're not currently running? I know there's been a couple new ones popping up, like the STS Short Track Showdown that Bryson Miller just started up. What leagues outside of the ones you currently run would you be interested in running in the future?
That's a good
Well,
question.
I'd like to run Velocity if Zach would unban me.
I that yeah, I get that.
I mean, it looks like a lot of fun over there, but I mean, other than that, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting my IFAR license
Hmm.
finally when tryouts come, because this would be, I think, my third attempt at tryouts.
Yeah.
So hopefully I get in this time and
Hey,
am able to make a few IFAR starts.
hey, can't do worse than Carl.
That's true.
Bro,
So, unless you have anything else to say or ask Tristan, Nico, we can move on to our next topic.
I'm good.
Well, thanks for answering those questions, Tristan. And if there's anything else that you want to talk about as the show goes on, we have plenty of time. But
oh, I'm sure I'll have plenty of opinions on stuff.
yeah, I would love to see you run Velocity. I would like to maybe talk to Zach about that because it's been a while since you were kicked out of cars, and you've definitely matured as a driver. So I'd love to see you run there. Which,
Yeah, I mean, it was over a year ago, and it was an argument with somebody who sympathizes with not nice people.
yep,
I feel like history should vindicate me for that one.
I get that. So speaking of Velocity, we'll cover the first start of Velocity. The very first race was at Daytona International Speedway. We had 15 cars show up, so it was a pretty good sized field. A lot of them were rookies, and when I say rookies, I mean rookies.
Rookies.
Like new to the game, very little experience with it. So I'm sure Tristan, you can imagine how that went. Um, there were a few veterans in the field. Ryan Sievers, Crystal Bennett, Nico, myself, Zach Hillier, Dakota Vega, um, Kez Hiller ran. So a few veterans, and you could definitely tell who was a veteran and who was not, because there was a 5-car breakaway of just the veterans while the rest of the field wrecked. Um, and that really was the story of the race because it became a fuel strategy race. Um, the 5 cars was myself, Nico, Zach, Kez, and Dakota. And we were all basically running the same strategy, but we had Kez was about a lap short, Dakota and Zach were half a lap short, and Nico and I had saved a lot of fuel coming to the last fuel cycle. So that was really fun to manage. Zach did a really good job at kind of guiding us as a pack to pit around the same time and save fuel. So we were running like half throttle around the track because we had pulled away by about 20 seconds. So that was really funny to watch and be a part of. Um, and then that final fuel cycle and that final pit stop is kind of where things really changed because unfortunately, we'll let Nico take this one. Nico had a couple issues on pit road.
Just had a speeding penalty, and then it's funny to me because everything, or anytime I seem to do well in a race, hit road decides to screw me over.
Yeah.
Because even in score, a day later, I was battling with Cole, Cole Rodriguez, and Fondre Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
and coming to the final pit stop, slow car pulls out of their box, slows me down a considerable amount of time, and I lose draft for the leaders. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sped on pit road, then got wrecked by rookies and got trapped a lap down. So final restart, got wrecked again by rookies.
Yep.
So the most disappointing sixth place finish I will ever have. And of course, it's at the track where I have my only NR online points win, which is the biggest amount of irony I could ever get in my entire life.
Yeah, it was definitely heartbreaking, I think, for me because you and I were working so well together. We had saved just enough fuel to beat out the other three, and it just really sucked because I think if it had come down to it and you didn't have the penalty, we probably could have been the two cars fighting for the win. But like you said, with about 7 or 8 to go, there was rookies fighting in front of the leaders, and you just unfortunately happened to be a part of that group, and big wreck happened in front of the leaders, right in front of the leaders. So that sucked because you had such a good run, and to see it end that way is definitely frustrating as a friend and as a fellow competitor. So we had a 4-lap shootout at the very end. It was down to pretty much 4 cars. Dakota, myself, Kez, and Zach. Zach started on the front. I was right behind him. And what really did it for me was coming out of 2, he shifted really early into 4th gear. And the gear ratios for Daytona were kind of off. You could really get it going in 3rd gear. I kind of cheated, not cheated, but I won the pole by only using 3rd gear because I was only doing qualifying runs in practice and discovered that 3rd gear ran faster than 4th. So I stayed in 3rd for a considerable amount of time longer than Zach did and pulled right around him, and I think Kez went with me, and then Dakota followed. And then we lined up 2 by 2 with about 3 to go, and I really didn't have much help. Dakota was pushing Zach, and Kez was kind of pushing me, but watching the replay, I can kind of tell they were wanting to get around me. And then I kind of called Dakota out since we're teammates, and he came down and pushed me. And then Zach lost his run. Dakota actually tried to get around me on the backstretch on the last lap, but stalled out his run, and I actually ended up getting my 3rd career win at Daytona, so that was really exciting. I said earlier in the podcast I don't get to win very often. They're kind of rare for me, so when I do win, it's very special. The only thing I wish is I'd win on different types of tracks. I've only won on super speedways, but I run really well in super speedways. It's kind of, I guess, my bread and butter, but that was really exciting. And velocity's off to a great start. Next week, meaning in a couple days, the next race is at Homestead, Miami. So I hear that the setup is coming together really well, and it's going to be really exciting from the testing that they did. I heard it's 4 grooves of racing, so I won't be there for it, unfortunately, but I hear that that's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, really fun race for me. I sound kind of biased because I won, but that was my first time actually having a strategy race, so that was fun to try.
Mhm.
So, Essex was just at Phoenix. We saw a pretty good race. Nico, you ran, and obviously Tristan ran as well. How did your guys' nights go?
Nico, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I had another front row start. Started second this time.
Mm-hmm.
Was able to keep up with Robbie a little bit, since Phoenix is another one of those tracks I'm somewhat good at. Um, Felt like I played strategy pretty well until those last pit stops where
Mm-hmm.
we tried to do an undercut, but some of the leaders were able to stay out and stretch the fuel. Got warp tracked a little bit again, trying to
Yep.
get my way back up to the field. Um, then just ended up finishing P5 with a damaged race car at the end. So
Yeah.
nothing special, but good points today overall.
Yeah. Tristan, how'd your night go?
Well, I'd say the first half was going really well because on restarts with new tires, I was able to not only keep pace, but I was starting to catch Robbie
Mm-hmm.
from second. So that I was like, holy crap, I'm actually catching up to Robbie Gilvin. This is insane. And then it all kind of just fell apart. Um, got forced up into the wall on one restart, and then that was the last restart of the night. So it ran green the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Got warp wrecked by the 20. So that also sucked. Shout out to the 20. Please close your window. You're letting all your Wi-Fi out.
Yep.
Um, but I I was I realized that my only possible way to get a win or even get a really good finish would be to just save fuel and not have to make a stop.
Yeah.
But tires ended up letting go a few laps early, so I was forced to come in and pit, and ended up coming away with a 13th place win or 13th place finish, where I could have had an 11th place finish or maybe even a top 10. I can't
Yeah.
remember what position I was going for there at the end, but I ended up spinning out in 3 and 4, coming to the checkered flag. So that was nice.
Yeah.
When all when the Alex and Braden show kicked off
You see, this is why I'm
on
kind of
Nascar.
disappointed that Braden isn't here because I wanted to talk about this with him. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so Braden has been having a very rough um, season. Last season he DNF'd more than he finished races. Um, and this season he's running better, but is still just having some really bad luck. And about halfway through the race, the '08 of Alex Mullen got into him and spun him up into the wall, and he was not very happy about that. So, race continues to go on, and he caught him, right? Coming out of turn 2, about to hit the dog leg, and he said over voice chat, he was like, I think I'm going to wreck him. And we were all like, you do you. We're not going to tell you what you can and can't do, but you know the consequences if you do. And lo and behold, he wrecked him. Turned him down into the dog leg. The damage actually wasn't that bad for the '08. Braden kept going on, and I thought that was that. the race continued to go on. We had pit strategy. As the race went on, there was a lot of tire failures. Braden blew a tire. Wenty Wolf blew a tire. A few other guys did too. On the last lap, coming to the checkered, Alex slowed down significantly and waited on Braden and turned him to him, wrecked him again intentionally, and caused a massive pileup before the leader even took the checkered flag. So they both got suspended for intent wrecking. So that was definitely interesting to see. As a driver, I understand, and I want to hear your guys' take on this. I understand why Braden did what he did, because having a very bad season and then just continuing to have bad luck and getting wrecked, I get why he wrecked Alex. But as as the league co-owner, I have to treat drivers fairly. So I'm interested to see what your guys' take on it is, because you were there for it.
Well, from my totally, completely unbiased opinion, um, I've raced with Alex Mullen in several different leagues. Most notably would be Meloncar Lights, where he had intent wrecked somebody
Mm-hmm.
and under caution and got booted from the race and proceeded to have an absolute meltdown. And then you have Braden, who's like cool.
Yeah.
He's he's
Braden
one of
is
the
pretty
funniest
cool.
people I've met in NR. He says whatever comes to mind, and
He
I
does.
like that. So, in my opinion, I think I think I think Braden shouldn't have a suspension.
Okay.
I think it should just be probation. I don't think he did it. I don't think he did it. But even if he did do it, you know what I mean?
Yep, I get what you're
Who
saying.
really gives a
I get what you're
who really
saying.
gives a it was justified. It was justified. Free Braden Koryeth. Everybody watching, it type down in the comments below free Braden Koryeth. He did nothing wrong.
I see we have a supporter. So Nico, what's your take on it?
I mean, it didn't really affect my race much, so I don't care either way. Um, I can get where his frustrations are. I've recently had a string of races where I get either 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 I don't run well or I get screwed out of good finishes by other people's wrongdoing.
Yeah.
So I had made an executive decision to be way more aggressive than I ever had been.
Yeah.
No more just giving. I'm just gonna start taking shit. And in races where I know I'm running good, if it comes down to it, I'm not gonna care. You
Yeah.
know,
You're not
that's
gonna pull over for someone. You're
well,
gonna
that's
fight for it.
the reason why I'm currently suspended in Gnarl from Myrtle Beach. Two incidents. One with the 43, sure, right? Fucking straight line, like fuck guy, right? Don't be a lap car, or just get out of my way in general. But the spin with Garson coming down to the end, 5 for P3.
Yeah.
If you make that type of contact in an actual car, you ain't spinning out.
Mhm.
But with everybody in NR being so strict on even the slightest bit of contact, and especially at a track like Myrtle Beach where you kind of expect that to happen,
Yeah. A short track like that, you expect contact.
they it's such a disparity because on Tuesday we were testing out some tracks for Bryson's new league, the
Mhm.
Short Track Showdown,
Yep.
which is going to have modifieds and late models and racing on short tracks.
Yeah.
Go figure. Me and Derek Shore, who usually drives ISRL and fast, we had the best short track racing that I have ever seen on NR. Full of contact, move each other up the track, driving underneath each other. We never got pissed at each other.
Yeah.
But if I was to do that in Gnarl, you get a probation or a suspension for it. But off my tangent here, going back to Braden, I didn't really care either way. He said he was going to do it, so you got to kind of take it as word for it.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think the suspension is justified because it was premeditated. But other than that, I didn't really care much for it because it didn't end up affecting my race at all after that.
Yeah. To your point about, league owners being super strict with penalties and contact and stuff, I try to be as lenient as I can with my penalties. Um, I, especially on short tracks, contact is contact. It's going to happen. Um,
Not like you're racing an IFAR where everything's super sweaty,
yeah,
You're racing Essex and Gnarl.
yeah,
Like, come on.
it's not that big of a deal, especially when at the end of the day, we're all here just having fun. We're playing a 21-year-old video game. Like, you know, if if you're running a league, you do have a image to uphold, but racing's racing. It's going to be, you're going to have contact. That's just how it is, especially if you're racing stock cars like we are.
Like, if I took Gnarl, California seriously, your ass would have been dead the next race.
Yeah. I
And that's another issue with Maverick now. Reason why I left after New Hampshire is because people couldn't handle contact. And people saying I intend to wreck them, they can kiss me where my cheeks meet. If they wanted to see intent wrecking, I would have murdered their ass.
yeah,
If they wanted to see intent wrecking.
I've never intent wrecked. I've intent bumped people, but um I definitely see where Braden was coming from. I've been very close to intent wrecking because there was actually, to go off of the latest episode of the McBasketball podcast. Phil Parker and I used to get into it a lot in Cars Trucks. You guys actually talked about it on your podcast. If you haven't watched that episode, you guys should definitely go over to the McBasketball podcast and listen to that episode. It's a really good one. Um, I was getting to the point where I was genuinely getting upset, ticked off, pissed off at Phil almost every week. Basically for what I was doing to Tristan, Phil, it felt like, was doing it to me. It was never intentional, I don't think. It was never premeditated. It was just Phil and I always seemed to meet each other on the track, and I always got the worst end of it. I got really close to intent wrecking Phil tons of times. Thankfully, we've moved past that. That was a good 2 years ago now. Phil is a good friend now. I love racing with Phil. I feel like he respects me on the track, and I respect him on the track. We haven't had contact or any issues probably since Cars Trucks, so I know how it feels to want to intent wreck, and I kind of got to a point where I had to remind myself, like, hey, this is a video game. I'm here to have fun, especially nowadays. Like, I'm here to hang out with you guys. I'm here to have fun with my friends on Friday and Saturday nights. So I stopped taking it so seriously, and I decided kind of the opposite of you. Like, I'm still going to race aggressively when I, have a shot, but I'm not going to get heated over things that honestly don't matter at the end of the day. So that's kind of how I look at these things now. But
I'll still get heated. I got heated actually at Alex Mullen after CCRS Bristol.
I still get heated, but I don't hold grudges for nearly as long as I used to.
No, I don't hold grudges. I'll cuss you out though.
Yeah,
I'll get pissed off at you.
definitely still feel bad about things that I do, but you know, you mentioned
No,
Gnarl,
California.
California. Like, you just said that if you took it more seriously, you would have wrecked me already. I still feel really
You would have
bad
been
about
dead.
that.
You would have been dead lap one of the next race.
Yeah, because
You'd be in the pit wall.
coming to however many laps to go, it wasn't a lot. I wrecked you on accident, and I wrecked you going single file while pacing. There was just a checkup in front of you, and I wasn't ready for it. Not trying to justify the incident or anything, but things like that I still feel bad about. But I don't, get mad at things as often anymore. I don't hold grudges as often anymore. But
You are still on the list for that.
and I still expect some payback to come my way eventually. I don't know what league it's going to be in. I don't know what race it's going to be in, but I am expecting it. And I'm not going to get mad over it, I deserve it. I ruined a good run for you, and, you know, I deserve it. But I didn't expect us to talk about intent wrecking and Braden's situation as long as we have, but that was a good little debate. Um, so moving on, I guess to Gnarl. I actually didn't know you were suspended. Um,
Oh yeah, I was suspended 3 races.
yeah, I actually wasn't aware of that. Um, Most recent race was at Talladega. Um, I had a really, really good run, actually. I finished sixth. I had Braden in my ear. He was my spotter slash crew chief for the night. Um, Tristan actually ran a Kona 2 racing car, the number 61. Unfortunately, I didn't have your paint scheme, so it was just a blank car for me. But it was
I
nice.
I didn't make one. I
It,
didn't make one. I just hopped into the game,
yeah,
made a blank car, set the number 61 as my number, and just hit the track.
it
Could have
was.
been worse. You could have had the X car.
Yeah. Um,
Oh god.
Regardless, it was nice to have another Kona 2 racing car out there because Braden hasn't officially said anything, but he hasn't raced Gnarl in a while, so I think he's kind of done racing there. Maybe he'll make some more starts, but it was nice to have a crew chief on the box, and ended up finishing sixth. Had a really good run at the end there, and was actually part of almost a three wide photo finish. So that was really exciting to be a part of. My issue is I just didn't have any help pushing coming to the line, but Tristan ended up finishing 15th. You got into it with, was it the 96 car?
No, it was the 46 because he
46.
doesn't realize that you can't force me onto the apron anymore.
Yeah,
I'm there. I am there. I'm not moving.
he blamed you initially, but got called out by Cameron after the um, officials reviewed it, and it was on the 46 car. He put you on the apron and wrecked both of you guys. So ended up rallying to a 15th place finish, which was really nice to see. I was happy to see that you finished pretty well after getting wrecked early like that, because it was pretty early in the race that happened. But
Yeah, I mean, I go ahead.
go ahead. I was just gonna move on to the next race, but if you have more to say, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I very rarely run gnarl, but I usually never miss a super speedway race. I love gnarl super speedway races
Hmm.
because they're always just jam packed with cars, and I'm just a super speedway merchant, so I always have to show up for
Yeah,
that. So
I really love super speedway racing. I know it's kind of a polarizing kind of style of racing. A lot of people don't enjoy it, but regardless of the chassis type, whether we're going 220 miles per hour or 230 at Talladega and Essex last season, or 185, I just love super speedway racing. I love being in the pack, and it's just so much fun. And when I finish well, it's makes it that much more rewarding. Um, yeah, I really love it. It's so much fun. I try not to miss plate races in leagues that I am participating in because I just love them so much. But it was really nice having another Kona 2 racing car out there, like I said. So if you end up making more starts, I'd be more than willing to keep that partnership going, and you can have the 61. But obviously, that's up to you. So if you want to run more races, I'm opening the door right here, right now for that. So yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, let me just look at the schedule and see what tracks I like, and
yeah,
if I want to show up, I'll show up for you.
absolutely. It's always fun to have not just teammates on the track, but friends on the track. And you guys actually talked about this on your podcast with Phil. Um, One of my favorite things about this community is the friends that I've made. Obviously, both of you. Nico's kind of a recent friend. We've been mutual friends and partners for a while, but it wasn't up until a month or two ago, really after California Gnarl, that we actually started talking and getting to know each other. Braden is super cool, like you said. Braden I've known for a very long time. Um, he's the first person I met when I joined the community, actually. Um, Kez is a good friend. Dakota's become a good friend. The Seavers brothers. The friends I've made in this community are really the reason I keep coming back to it. It's just always fun to hang out with you guys, and having my podcast and your podcast just makes it even better because then I get to hang out with you guys even more. So I'm sounding cheesy at this point, but I love having friends that I can hang out with. Running in cars, trucks, I really didn't have any friends, and that was one of the reasons why I stopped racing there, because I just felt like I was by myself a lot of the time. But it's kind of surprising when I hop into other leagues and people realize I joined. Like, I'm fairly well known now, and that's kind of weird to me, but I guess that's part of going back to what we were saying earlier, getting the Kona 2 brand out there. People are aware of the team and they're aware of who I am, so that's kind of weird, but it's nice in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents in on that subject. If those watching, if you'll go back to the first episode of the McBasket cast, where I kind of spoke on that, where I started gaining a bit of notoriety around there, and people would say, "Oh my gosh, it's Crangus McBasketball,"
Mm-hmm.
and people knew who I was, people knew my name, and it it's a really good feeling, to not be a nobody and actually have people recognize you.
Yeah,
And I mean, even my dog, everybody in the NR community just loves my dog.
of course. I mean, yeah. But like the most recent example I have of this was right before Cars ended. Well, this isn't the most recent. It's just a recent example. Um, right before Cars ended and the Rookie Series was running, it had replaced the Truck Series. I made my very final Cars start in the Rookie Series at Phoenix, and I'm not sure who it was that said it, but I joined the team speak, and everyone was like, "It's Connor. We love having him here," and it was just so like, wow, like people actually know who I am, and more importantly, they like me because when I left Cars, I felt like no one really knew who I was, and if they did, they didn't like me very much. And going back to our rivalry, that was kind of hard because people started knowing who I was, but they knew of me for the wrong reasons. Like, oh, it's the guy who always wrecks Tristan or spins out under caution, and it's like, do I really want to keep doing this? Like, I feel like every time I join, I'm being called out for sucking, and now I feel like I've got a pretty good reputation, which is nice, but it's just always weird when I hop into other leagues and people are aware of who I am.
I don't know what kind of notoriety I got when I first started, but I know like now when I come back to leagues every now and again, like I just did for Fuel and Score, I'll get like a "Hey, welcome back."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, coming into NR with Hammond and Allie, um, probably not the
Yeah,
greatest pick of who to come in with, but I digress.
yeah. I
Um,
I was kind of in that circle for a while and ended up obviously regretting it. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, you and me both. Like,
yeah,
I was, you know, I was friends with Allie. Like, she would go to bat for me sometimes.
me too.
And it's just one of those things where you don't think that a person like that could do what they did. And I wish I was never involved with her
Yeah.
in the first place. And I'm sure Phil can say the same.
Yeah, kind of like you were saying on your podcast. We don't have to get into the details of it and talk about it very much, but it is it was really sucky because it was like, wow, I probably just tarnished my own reputation, but whatever. I feel like
yeah,
I've moved a lot on since then, and Kona 2 Racing has done a lot of good things since then. So
yeah. I mean, I've driven for Jerry for half the season in IFR. I drove for
yep,
Cameron in a season of CCRS.
yeah,
I got
I
I got some new friends. I've been with Bryson for like a couple years. He's kept spinning me under caution, yet somehow, that turns into a good friendship.
yeah,
Um,
I
you know,
yeah, I've got a lot of good friends here recently. I feel like the number of friends I have in the circle has really grown, and I think that's just a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, I guess that's really it. Unless there's more that you guys would like to cover, I'd love to keep going if there's something you'd like to talk about. But that's all I have.
Yeah, I'll just say this really quick. So those of you who also follow the McBasket cast, we're actually going to be off this week because I'm going to be going and visiting my dad. Because I haven't spent any time at his house for a couple months now. So I'm going to be going and seeing him this weekend. So I guess I will be making a community post on my channel linking you to this episode so you can have your weekly fill of my yapping,
Yep.
and you also get to be in touch with Kona 2 cast. So that grows the fan base for all of us, really.
Yep. You scratch
And
my back, I'll scratch yours.
absolutely. And along with that, I will not be at Essex Dover this weekend, so that'll be a last place points finish for me.
Yep. I was actually going to ask if there was anything you wanted to shout out, so you got to it before I did. But I think we're going to try to get myself and Braden on the McBasket cast here soon, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Look out for that. Um, Nico, thank you again for joining. It's been great having you on the show, and I look forward to having you on the show in the future. Tristan, thanks for hopping on here. It was a lot of fun having you as a guest. Hopefully, we can have you on again soon. Um, thanks for being a partner of Kona 2 Racing, and thanks for being a friend. And everyone, go listen to the McBasket cast. He puts a lot of work into it, and it's really fun to listen to. So, again, thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for finally having me on. It's the first time I've actually been interviewed on a podcast, so it's nice to be the interviewee and not the interviewer for once.
Yeah, and
But we're
next
gonna keep
time,
rocking and rolling over on my channel.
yep.
We're constantly upping the production quality. We got some actual good sounding music on Phil's episode.
Yes, you did.
It it sounded really good. I was happy with that, and yeah, hopefully I can get you and Braden on in the next couple weeks. And if anybody out there in the NR community wants to be a guest on my show, just if you can find me on Discord, hit me up there. I'm not sure how well it would work out if you commented on one of my videos. I don't know, but if you know me on Discord, hit me up there. I'll, do my best to work you in whenever I can. Always looking for guests. And um, also, I might as well plug my company here. Shout out to Georgia Forestry Commission. for giving me this internship. If you want to learn about Georgia's forests, go to gatrees.org. That's gatrees.org on the internet, and you can learn a lot more about the trees of Georgia. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's about it. There's the shameless plug for you.
I'll make sure to link that down in the description below, so you guys definitely go check that out. I think that's all I've got for us tonight, but it was great having you on. And we'll see you guys again next week, and it's going to be fun. See you then.